Hello folks, and welcome back to True Crime Phenomenon. This is Josh coming back to you with another video. This is part 3 of the interview with Lieutenant Crabb. Just to give you a little background for some context for all of you newcomers, Jeremy Dewitte is a serial police impersonator currently in prison for multiple felony convictions. His police impersonation goes all the way back to 1998 when he was kicked out of the Police Explorers program for stealing $14 of gas. Jeremy started a funeral escort company that was under investigation by the Orange County Sheriff's Office. In order to combat this investigation, led by Corporal Ramsey and Sergeant Fiddler, Jeremy would send in his employees and friends to make complaints against Fiddler and Ramsey. When this didn't work, he recruited attorney Michael Breen by arming him with edited videos to take to the Internal Affairs or Professional Standards Division. Now, Michael Breen was interviewed by Sergeants Mitchell and Vasquez. Sergeant Mitchell claims that Michael Breen was going into business with Jeremy Dewitte. Now, this is alleged because this is what Sergeant Mitchell claims. This is important because Michael Breen is friends with the Sheriff John Mina, and he actually says that in his Internal Affairs interview, which you can find on my channel playlist, IA Fiddler Dewitte. So Internal Affairs. Have a whole playlist with all the interviews. Now, this led to Sergeant Fiddler getting fired and Corporal Ramsey getting an unpaid suspension. So this interview, like I said, was between Sergeant Justin Wall, and Sergeant Michael Harmon of the Professional Standards Division. This interview took place on April 28th of 2021 at 1:18 p.m. with Acting Captain Lieutenant Crabb. Now, recapping the last videos, part 1, Lieutenant Crabb approved probable cause for the arrest and Corporal Ramsey's interview of Jeremy Dewitte, despite previous confrontations with Jeremy and being part of the previous investigation. Now, part 2, they go over the statute they used to arrest Jeremy on March 23rd of 2021. Lieutenant Crabb does a little backtracking on the probable cause for the arrest. PoliceTube actually has a really good breakdown video of the statute. Check that out when you guys have time. It's a really great video. They then discuss the emails sent to Jeremy Dewitte about carrying pepperball weapons. They also discuss Jeremy Dewitte throwing out statutes and claiming he has permission to do what he's doing, etc., and so on and so forth. So that's going to wrap it up for the review of the previous videos. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. There's much more coming, and I'll catch you on the other side.
I wouldn't
Have you ever met Mr. Dewitte before this day?
No, I didn't meet him that day either.
Okay. So you've never met Mr. Dewitte?
No.
So your only knowledge is from what?
Rumors around the motor's office.
And so is that what you're basing the fact that he throws out?
Correct.
These, throws out names or statutes or whatever?
Yeah.
So when you heard that, you're saying that you didn't think anything of it because that would be a common thing for Mr. Dewitte to do based on rumors you had heard?
Yes, and furthermore, common for, defendants to throw out stuff like that
Okay.
all the time. So I wouldn't have made a connection. I wouldn't have made a connection to it. I didn't make the connection until I saw the YouTube video, and it was just one of his random ones, and up popped this email, and I'm like, oh, that must be the email he was talking about. So that's the only connection I had, but that was days after.
Okay. So if it weren't for the previous times that you've heard about Mr. Dewitte spitting off this and that, would you have at least gone a little deeper into it? Hey, what's he talking about?
What I told you in the very beginning, if I had all the background information on this, we would have gone in a totally different direction.
Okay.
But I had not. So the answer to your question is yes. But had I had all that background information and knew what an issue he was, the whole thing would have gone differently.
Okay. So if you knew that I understand, you stop people all the time and they tell you, oh, I have a letter saying my driver's license is good, I'll find it for you. I get that.
Yeah.
But in this case, he's saying I have an email that says I'm allowed to do what you're arresting me for. So I think that's where the contention is. So you're saying if it weren't for what Jeremy had or the impression that of everybody that Jeremy had in the past, you would have questioned it a little bit more if you had known.
Yeah. Once again, if I had more background on what happened previously, a lot of things would have been different.
Okay. Were you made aware by Corporal Ramsey, Sergeant Vidler, or anyone else that Mr. Dewitte had made multiple requests for a lieutenant or a captain? Actually, he made 17 requests on the traffic stop.
I heard on the body-worn camera, I heard that he requested a lieutenant, and assumed that Cal had taken care of that since Cal's the one that called me.
Okay.
So I thought that we had accommodated that.
Okay. Did you know for sure?
No.
Or that was just an assumption?
Yeah.
Because, did Sergeant Vidler ever make any mention of that, or?
No, he did not.
Hey, Wacker already spoke to him, or was there anything like that?
No.
So the only way you knew about it was from watching the body-worn camera? Is that
Correct.
So nobody told you, hey, he wants to speak to a lieutenant?
Correct.
Okay. And you said you did not speak to Mr. Dewitte that day?
Did not.
All right, you said you reviewed the body-worn camera video of the traffic stop involving Sergeant Vidler. So, as a manager, did you have any concerns about the stop and the whole thing? You watched the video.
Of the actual stop, I did initially just based on I-4 traffic, but I didn't realize that Reeves was basically right behind him and was kind of partially blocking that lane. So I just had some safety concerns for that lane. Other than that, I don't. I saw in the news that Jeremy was claiming that Vidler was dragging him down the road, and I don't have any recollection of that. I saw him trying to get his helmet off, but I had no recollection of, and I don't think there was any break in his video, so I don't remember seeing anything like that, because that was days later on some news interview when he was getting out of jail or something. So.
Okay. What is your knowledge of the history between Sergeant Vidler and Mr. Dewitte?
Limited. I mean, I know that Sergeant Vidler started working the way that Metro State was doing funeral escorts, which were illegal in certain circumstances. So they started enforcing that, and there's an open case in Osceola and Orange. I don't know. I know some of the charges in Orange, I think, have something to do with insurance, but I think it was more employees that were arrested for impersonating a police officer. I don't know if we ever did that with Jeremy or not. So I have very limited. I know that Captain Carpenter before he left on medical leave, it wasn't like he didn't fill me in. He just, in casual conversation, he told me one time that he was ordered to stop the investigation that him and Ramsey were doing, and I don't really know anything about that investigation. I'm assuming that's all the pending charges at the state attorney's office now. So he had ordered them to finish that up, and I believe they wrapped that up in the time they were supposed to.
You said it was Captain Carpenter?
Captain Carpenter. Yeah.
And when was that?
It was a casual conversation. We weren't talking about anything. You know, I was in his office. We were talking about a bunch of stuff.
So. Months, years?
Oh no, I've only been there since September. So definitely would have been. I would probably could narrow it down to this year. Probably December, January, maybe. I would say January, probably.
There was a discussion with you and Captain Carpenter,
and
he made mention that he had instructed them to conclude their investigation. Is that
correct? Yeah.
Okay. How did that come up?
I don't remember exactly. We were. Yeah, I don't remember. And we were just having some conversations about the section, so not sure how that came up.
Okay. Do you have any knowledge of the investigation that Sergeant Bidler was working on Mr. Dewitte? I mean, you kind of, there's a history there. How much knowledge did you have of the actual investigation?
None.
Okay.
Other than there was one.
So are you aware of Sergeant Bidler contacting insurance companies regarding Mr. Dewitte's personal or business insurance policies?
No.
So let me ask you this, being over the motor unit, is that common practice, do you know, to contact insurance companies of violators, either in traffic stops or subsequent, later on after a traffic stop, to contact an insurance company of a violator that maybe doesn't have insurance or something? Have you ever heard of that, or is that common practice?
I would say you're talking about two different things. And once again, this is just speculation because I don't know. But if you're comparing a traffic stop to an investigation, so a traffic stop, I would say no, that wouldn't be common practice on a one-off traffic stop. But if you're doing an investigation, or you're having constant problems with the same person, I would say maybe not. It could be part of the investigation.
Okay. Do you know of anybody else that's ever done that?
Not personally, no. I don't know how I would, but no.
Okay. Are you aware of Sergeant Bidler contacting multiple private businesses that are clients of Mr. DeWitte's company? So Mr. DeWitte has a company and he has clients that use him. Are you aware of Sergeant Bidler communicating with any of those clients of Mr. DeWitte's about Mr. DeWitte's criminal history or anything like that?
No.
That never came up?
No. Is this recent, or are you talking about the previous investigation?
In the past years.
Okay.
So
all right.
I'm talking about during this investigation that is.
To clarify, just so you know, my only exposure to motors started in February.
Okay.
When I took over as acting captain.
Okay.
So.
Fair enough. And your normal responsibilities, you're over.
Evening traffic, DUI testing center, parking enforcement, red light cameras, and traffic complaints.
Okay. So a lot of other things, but not specifically over motors.
Correct.
Okay. Did Sergeant Bidler make any statements regarding his history with Mr. DeWitte in these discussions after this arrest? So just going back to this arrest, but it has to do with the history. Did Sergeant Bidler make any statements that gave you the impression that his history with Mr. DeWitte may have impacted or influenced his decision to make an arrest on that day?
I don't think so. The only rule the kind of unwritten rule that I knew about was that they were not to proactively do anything with Metro State, but if something happened in front of them, that they could engage them. So, and that's kind of where this one landed, because they happened to see him on I-4.
And so you said that was that the last directive that? How do you know that? Was that a directive that was ordered by you, or?
No, it was not. It was not. It was previous to me, and that probably came from Captain Carpenter as well.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so was that relayed directly to you, or are you just hearing that through the grapevine?
It's a good question. I don't know. Because we would, once again, it could have been a casual conversation with Captain Carpenter. We're talking about the section. He might throw things off of me talking about the section about improving things or something, and something comes up about somebody, and then we get off on might get off on something talking about Metro State or something, or a neighborhood that's complaining. We could go in a bunch of different directions.
Okay.
So I don't recollect. I just do know that was kind of the standing order, and then I changed that standing order to they are untouchable. So do not do any engagement whatsoever unless it's a forcible felony.
When did you?
The day after Keith was relieved.
Okay. All right.
Actually, that's not true. I'm sorry. I believe was Jeremy's arrest on a Tuesday?
It's 23rd. I don't know what day of the week. I believe it was a Tuesday.
If it was a Tuesday, then I met with the entire motors unit on Wednesday. So we had
23rd of March was a Tuesday.
Yeah. All right. So the 24th, we had a funeral escort, and while we were waiting for the funeral, Valencia's funeral, we were out front, and I gathered all of them.
Okay. But prior to that, when Sergeant Vidler took action on the 23rd, the standing order was don't proactively seek them, but if you see them committing a crime
You can engage.
or an infraction,
Yep.
then you can engage them.
Yep. Correct.
Was there any indication from Sergeant Vidler that that's what he was seeking out Mr. Dewitte on that day?
No, he wanted to make sure it was clear that him and Jonathan, our Deputy Reeves, were on I-4, basically burning some time for lunch, doing aggressive driving, and that would not be unusual. So they focus on the bigger I-4, 408, 417, 528.
Okay. Are you familiar with any ill will that Sergeant Vidler may have towards Mr. DeWitt?
Other than him not liking him being a criminal, other than that, no.
Okay. Do you have anything?
I think you covered it all.
2 full pages, I hope so.
I told you there was some questions.
Yeah, I think.
And again, I'm just trying to get a full understanding of what was taking place and
Yeah, I get it.
what was going
Yeah,
on.
absolutely.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Is there anything else that you know about this investigation you'd like to add at this time?
No, sir.
Okay. The current time is 1:56 p.m. and that concludes this interview.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for part 3. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, let me know what you think down in the comments below. And I'll catch you on the next one.